The Castilla is the legendary tier Spanish cruiser, available now. Well, not technically now. The Bureau project is available as of the October 2025 update, so you could start that. And, it'll take you a little while to actually obtain the ship. You'll also need to grind out the entire Spanish cruiser lines because, in order to progress the Bureau project, it will require one win in the tier 6, one in the tier 7, one in the tier 8. But I'd say the ship is worth picking up. It's certainly the pinnacle of the Spanish cruiser line, and I've had nothing but fun while playing it, honestly. The gimmick on this really shines, more so than on some of the lower tiers. Not that those are bad. The Catalunya I had great success with. The Andalusia, not quite as much, and I feel like the Castilla is an improvement on the Andalusia, a bit of an incremental one, but it does seem to make all the difference. Pretty good ship here. We're going to run down the stats, and then this battle is probably the most interesting one I've had all update week. It's not a blowout. In fact, I think it'll sort of come down to the wire, where it could have been anybody's game. And of course, those are the kind of matches that make World of Warships Legends worth playing year after year. Now, we'll run down the stats, but keep in mind they are influenced by the commander build. The commander is Pascual Cervera y Topete. He was the commander reward for the previous update, so if you didn't get him, I assume he'll be coming to the game at some point. He is the only historical cruiser-specific Spanish commander in the game right now, so you would think they would make him easy to obtain. His legendary skill allows you to get 3 salvos put into the ready rack instead of the base 2, but as a trade for that, you lose some HP, and it massively nerfs the reload time. So the stats I read to you are going to be influenced by that. We have William Sims as one of the inspirations, by the way, to mitigate the HP nerf. I feel like you don't want to be losing too much HP on a cruiser, but maybe there are better inspiration choices. Anyway, as we take position here around the flank of the Charlie Cap and begin farming the perfectly balanced Louisiana with the 3 salvos from the ready rack and do 14,000 damage, we'll just start running down the stats. To begin with, we've got 57,180 HP. That is because of the Sims inspiration. Base, it's 56,000. And, it'd be a little bit lower than that if you used this triple ready rack skill and didn't use Sims to mitigate the loss of HP that skill brings to you. The armor on this thing is also all right. If you look at the gun size and the hull, you might be thinking that this is something like the Napoli. This does have the same sized guns as the Napoli after all. They are 9 254mm guns, but the armor is not quite as robust. It does have an icebreaker like the Napoli, but the 25mm part of the bow and stern are, I think, a little bit more exposed than Napoli's. And then the upper belt armor or side plating is 30mm, along with the deck. Napoli's a little bit better than that. It can bounce more battleship salvos. Castilla can bounce the Louisiana off its 30mm belt plating, but against something like Republique or anything with guns that size and larger, well, they're just going to overmatch that plating and get penetrations. However, if you take a look at the armor scheme, which I'll show you here after we finish firing the salvos at Louisiana, we've got quite a long reload time to look at things. If you take a look at the armor scheme, you'll notice that on the torpedo protection part of the armor scheme, there is a spaced plate between the torpedo protection and the actual Citadel armor. I haven't been shot at enough in this ship to really know, and of course I haven't had the opportunity to shoot at this ship myself, but that kind of spaced armor plate can create problems with the way that shells work in this game. Sometimes I think what'll happen, or what you'll see happen, is that shells will penetrate the Castilla's side armor and then simply disappear without actually reaching the Citadel because of that spaced plate. That's what happens on a lot of French cruisers, especially at some of the lower tiers. Sometimes you just get shells that vanish into that spaced armor and don't actually deal critical damage. But the jury's still out on that one until I get more of an opportunity to actually shoot at this thing. The only people that have it right now are, of course, me and my fellow community contributors. We'll have to wait a couple weeks or maybe a couple months before it reaches the general population. As for the guns, we've touched on those a little bit. You can see they're doing pretty good damage against this Stalingrad. They are 254 millimeter guns, and with this build, we have a relatively anemic main battery range of a mere 15.8 kilometers. And unfortunately, there is no skill on the Spanish cruiser commander Pascual that increases the main battery range. You'd have to use somebody like Kuznetsov as an inspiration in order to increase the range, or the epic battle propensity flag would also do it, but not by much. So 15.8, pretty low main battery range, I would say. Reload time also is 28.6 seconds because of that legendary skill. Base, it's a little bit shorter than that at 24 seconds. Still a very long reload time, but keep in mind, if you don't have this commander, every time you reload, you're firing 2 salvos. And if you do have the commander with the skill, then you're firing 3. And as you can see from the initial salvos against the Louisiana and the Stalingrad, this thing can pump out a lot of damage when it's firing 2 to 3 salvos all at once. The reload time for the salvos on the ready rack is 2.5 seconds between firing, so that's a lot of damage in very quick succession. And the HE, being much bigger guns on this thing than your typical cruiser, has good damage at 3,600, 16% fire chance, and being larger guns, pens 42 millimeters of armor. So a lot of room there to deal a lot of damage. The AP is also quite good with a 6,300 alpha strike, and it's got some decent, well, no, it's got conventional penetration angles. Nothing specific there or nothing special there, certainly not like the Americans. There may be an example in this match a little bit later on of us sending the AP into a cruiser broadside or two. And as you can imagine, if you do that with the ready rack and you've got 2-3 salvos of AP, the results can be pretty devastating for the enemy cruiser. This might actually be a decent time to switch to the AP against the Louisiana. I don't know if we could actually penetrate the Citadel, but if I remember correctly, the Louisiana is the only one of these American hybrid battleships whose Citadel is actually exposed and relatively hittable at close ranges like this. But we don't really need to worry about that. We can push into the Louisiana thanks to our armor scheme as long as we're angled properly. He's going to bounce most of his shells. You see there he only gets a couple over penetrations, and then we're driving him into the rest of the team where he will perish. You'll notice we had torpedoes coming at him as well. They're obviously not going to hit, but the Castilla comes equipped with 10 torpedoes in 2 quintuple launchers on either side of the ship. They only have an 8-kilometer range. They've got a 62 knot speed. They hit for 15,000. And, well, I haven't really gotten the opportunity to use them all that much. I don't really find myself within 8 kilometers of too many ships too often. The AA defenses, we'll just gloss over those. Unlike with the ship yesterday, I have no experience really shooting any legendary tier CVs. The thing's got an aggregate rating of 82 on the AA, but how that translates into efficacy in the game, I don't know. I'm going to assume it probably is not very good at defending itself, like most things. Maneuverability, though, is a pretty big highlight. We've got a top speed of 37 knots, which of course is very fast, 820 meter turning circle, and an 11.5 second rudder shift. And then the concealment is sort of mid at 11.1. You're more conspicuous than many cruisers, but the armor, I think, helps, and also just the firepower you can put out with the ready rack is nice. You can see we've gotten up to 134,000 damage, and the score is quite close here. It's 641 to 618. This battle really could go any way, but either way, rather, but we do outnumber the enemy team 3-1. The big unfortunate problem here is that one of the enemy ships is a Preußen, which of course can overmatch our armor scheme, so we do need to be careful about dealing with him. He's pretty healthy, too. We're going to hold our salvo here until we can get turned away. Don't want to shoot now while we're flat broadside, get ourselves spotted and dev struck. But there, Preußen shoots his own guns. We can see his rear turrets are turning in this direction too, and he only shot the front. However, we're approaching this island, so we should be able to send these 3 salvos his way and then go dark. Of course, we light a fire for our 9th of the game, I believe. This thing does seem to light a lot of fires with the ready rack. As long as something doesn't have DCP on cooldown, it almost seems like the fires are guaranteed. They literally aren't, but it feels that way from time to time. Preußen, of course, DCPs, and then we get spotted by the enemy destroyer, which is a Gdansk. We don't know his position just yet, but spoiler alert, he's right in front of us. He was last spotted in the Delta cap, and he's making his way from Delta to Charlie to take away the blue team's only secured cap for this match. As you can see, the Reds are overtaking us on points quite dramatically. Preußen continues to push in. We've got a friendly battleship moving in toward him, and evidently Gdansk thinks that I'm on low enough HP that he's going to be able to shoot at me with his main battery guns and sink me. Maybe he would be able to, but I don't think it's a great idea. We've sent 1 salvo Preußen's way, so we've got only 2 more for Gdansk, and this is kind of how the ship would work with only these 2 salvos here, if you don't have the commander with the special legendary skill. But as you can see with 2 salvos, the damage against Gdansk is not insignificant. I think one of those salvos was 5k, the other one might have been 1 or 2, so that's like 6-7k with basically 1 salvo. And so that's a lot of devastating damage to a destroyer. Gdansk has got us radared with his radar. We've got sonar going. Of course, the Castilla does come with sonar, it comes with a repair party, and it comes with a fighter. The sonar is nothing super special. It detects torpedoes at 3.5 km and ships at 5, so I suppose you could use it to push a smoke screen from time to time and have success, particularly if there's a destroyer still hiding in that smoke screen and you've got 2 to 3 salvos to send into its broadside. You can probably take it out in the span of 1 ready rack with the unique skill. I think I talked about this when I covered the Catalunya or the Andalusia last month, but that unique skill also means you don't get to take Master Mechanic. So, of course, we only have 2 repair parties, and that does limit the survivability of the cruiser somewhat. I'd almost rather have the 3 repair parties and the 2 salvos in the ready rack, but I've been playing pretty much all of the Spanish cruisers like this with the 3rd salvo in the ready rack, sacrificing on the survivability for a little bit more damage, perhaps a bit of a higher risk, higher reward type thing there. Anyway, I think the Castilla is good. This gimmick, the more that I use it on the Spanish cruisers, the more I like it. I wasn't totally sold on it at first, but, well, this match, it ends with our victory, high caliber medal, almost 160,000 damage done, not quite, and we're not top of the leaderboard, actually. That honor is going to go to a friendly Montana who had himself a hell of a game. GG to him, but the Castilla, fun ship, one that can pump out a lot of damage in quick succession, and certainly the pinnacle of this Spanish cruiser line. I would recommend starting the Bureau project as long as you're not desperately trying to finish something else, but I suspect most of you aren't. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.